everyone, and welcome to the first ever pre-recorded show of Red Through and Through. So I've got my first ever guest on today. Basically, it's a programme where I chew the fat with some of the more experienced Reds that I've got to know over the years. I've been very lucky to meet some fantastic people while I've been supporting United. So basically, we chew the fat over people's memories of what they can remember from watching United going way back. So this morning, I've got one of my best pals on, Gary. Thanks for coming on, Gary.
You're welcome, Rick. It's a pleasure.
Nice one, mate. I've known Gary 30 years, but obviously he can remember a lot of stuff from watching United for a lot further back than that even. So let's get started with Gary, with how when you started supporting United and what you can remember from the first couple of games that you went to, if even the first game that you ever went to.
I've got vivid memories of my first few games actually, because it was my first game was the 4th of May 1968, and we played Newcastle at home, and it was the next to the last league game of the season, which were both home games, and we should have won the league, to be honest, and we beat Newcastle 6-0, which fantastic start for me, and I couldn't wait to get back the next week when we were playing Sunderland at home, who were already about 5th from the bottom of the league, and it should have been an easy win, really. And we ended up losing 2-1, which at exactly the same time City were playing at Newcastle, and they won, I think it was 5-3, which gave them the league title, which was devastating for me. And as a result of that, I've always... you may have noticed yourself, I've always had more of a dislike for City than I have for Liverpool over the years, and it's because of that early memory, and also from them first two games, bearing in mind we'd lost to City at home a few weeks earlier than that as well. I think it was about 4 years later before I actually saw United beat City in a league game. Right. Although we did beat them in the FA Cup at Old Trafford in 1970. I had a lot of pain from City in them days, but yeah, they were my first two games, and then 4 days after Sunderland, which it could have been a reason or an excuse for the poor performance against Sunderland, we were playing Real Madrid away in the second leg of the European Cup, so thankfully we got the 3-3 draw there and went through to the final. So that's how it all started for me, mate.
Right, so obviously going back to the late 60s as that is, obviously it was the time of Charlton, Law and Best. Must have been fantastic watching those players play on. Obviously you saw them on numerous occasions. If you saw them against Sunderland and Newcastle, did you have a favourite player from out of those three players?
Dennis Law was always my favourite, but one thing I often regret is not being a couple of years older to have seen him in 64, 65, 66 when he really was at his prime. Yeah. So from 68, obviously he missed the last 4 games of that season because he had a cartilage injury, including the European Cup final. Yeah. And when he came back from that, a lot of people who saw his whole career said he was never the same player, but he was still the player when I stepped out onto a football pitch. I was the king, so yeah, it was my hero, role model, whatever you want to say. And obviously, a lot of people at that time thought Bestie was the better player, and quite understandable. But now for me, it was always Dennis, and still is to this day.
Brilliant. So as you just touched on there, we got to the semi-final of the European Cup. We drew in Madrid, which we'd won the first leg, hadn't we? 1-0. So but then obviously the final of the Champions League, the European Cup as it was then, 1968. What are your memories of that game, Gary?
Well, it was quite a funny day because my dad had got a ticket to go to the game because he was a regular match-going Red, home and away, 50s and 60s. When he eventually took me to them 2 games, it was my mum decided it was a bit harsh him going without me, So he let his mate have a ticket, and on the day of the final, we had something go wrong with the telly, and it was an old black and white telly, obviously, in them days.
Yeah.
And he had to go out and get another one. I don't know whether he bought it or it was one of the rediffusion rental jobs, but I know it cost a few quid because we got a colour telly. Yeah. And so not only did he miss the final, he had to go and fork out for a new TV as well, which it may go some way to explaining why 2 years later he left. So,
obviously,
he was the reason.
Yeah,
sorry, mate.
Got it. Go on, carry on.
He was the reason I became a United fan. If he'd have been a Blue, I would have been as well, sort of thing. Which is, as you know, which is the way it worked generally in them days.
Generally, yeah. Obviously, you were very young. Have you actually got vivid memories of the night when they won it, of actually watching the game?
Yes, I have. Yeah, it was way past me bedtime when after 90 minutes sort of thing, and then obviously it was all done and dusted in the first 10 minutes of extra time, and but I was allowed to stay up and watch players running around with the cup and all that night, and it was a memorable night.
That's absolutely brilliant. I mean, we're similar ages, but I didn't take really an interest, funnily enough, for about another year after that when I started going. So I've got no memory of that European Cup final whatsoever, which is a shame. So obviously there was a rapid decline then for United, having won the European Cup. Within about 5 seasons, they got relegated, didn't they? Was it 5 or 6 seasons later, which was an unbelievable decline. What are your memories of that season, Gary? United getting relegated in the Championship?
It's funny enough. I've always said that the worst season I can remember watching United was the year before we got relegated, because I thought we were very poor then, and it was absolutely shocking. Some of the home games, I did go to a few away games during the early 70s as well, luckily, because my dad used to go. But the games at Old Trafford, I can barely remember a game that you thought, wow, that was a good game. Or it was dire. The only highlight I can remember for that season was seeing Ian Storey-Moore play, who is one of the best players I've ever seen play for United. It was just tragic that his career was brought to an end through injury. But the year we got relegated, obviously, it was a bit more exciting because we were dicing with relegation towards the end, and we were a bit unlucky, really. The last 3 games, I think we lost them all 1-0. Everton, City, and Stoke, I think it was. We went down fighting, sort of thing, which was a bit of a, it was better than just going without a fight at all, as we'd almost done the year before. But that took us on to, for me, the best season I ever had watching United in the second division. It was. I missed 2 games that season. They were at Portsmouth and Millwall away, which were both midweek away games, which made it a bit awkward. But some memorable trips on that one. It was just.
I've got a few questions.
Just different.
Sorry.
It was just different than anything before, going to places like York and Bristol Rovers. It was. It was great. It was
completely different, wasn't it? Going to all different little states.
Yeah, I'd take another year of that now, I think.
You enjoyed it that much. Just going back a little touch. Obviously the season we got relegated. Obviously you'll remember it clearly, without a doubt. Getting beat by City, Dennis Law scored at Old Trafford. He'd moved to City by then. That was a kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
But obviously the pitch was invaded, wasn't it? After the game.
Yeah, I was on there, Rick.
I thought you might have been.
Yeah. Well, obviously it used to be a bit of a custom among some to nick a bit of turf, and I got a bit of that day. That wasn't the main reason most people were on there, but I had 2 bits of turf in the front garden from that game, and the following year against Blackpool, the last home game in the second division. Actually, there's still there as far as I know.
Right. Yeah, just obviously a lot of people wonder what you're talking about there, but at the end of each season, in those days, the fans used to always run on the pitch at the very last game, didn't they? And it was a common sight to see people digging up a little bit of turf and taking it away with them, wasn't it? And obviously the pitch was then repaired in time for the following season starting. There was, mentioning pitch invasions, we actually had a funny scenario where we played a couple of games. I can't remember if it was the year before we went down or maybe the year before that. We played 2 games away from Old Trafford that were home games. What are your memories of
that? I went to the game at Anfield on the Friday night when we played Arsenal. Yeah, I think we beat them 3-1. Yeah. And also went to Stoke. We beat West Brom. So yeah, they were a bit strange. The Anfield.
Can you remember why we were actually playing home games away from Old Trafford?
Yes, it was. We played Newcastle at home. I can't remember if it was the same season or the season before. No, it was the season before. And a knife was thrown from the Stretford end. And it's funny how I remember it, but Newcastle had a player called Joe Craig. And it was sort of in his general direction. And obviously a bit of a dangerous thing to do. But,
wasn't you? Wasn't you who threw it? Was it, Gary?
No, it wasn't me. No, I kept my knife digging the turf up. Yeah, so. I'm not joking about there. By the way, I did take a knife with me to the last home games purely to dig up a bit of turf. Not even thinking it. It could be a problem sort of thing. But can't imagine doing that these days.
These days, yeah. So there you go. You touched on the season in the second division. You said you really enjoyed it. Any particular game stand out for you? Anything that happened or where you went?
Yeah, Bristol Rovers was a funny game because I'm sure it was either a Good Friday or a Easter Monday. I think it was Easter Monday, and we went on a coach and we got to Bristol as you used to in them days quite early, but you couldn't get a drink anywhere with it being Easter, so there was just like
pubs were closed.
No, you couldn't get a drink anywhere, and there was, there wasn't even any supermarkets or anything, which was normal then on an Easter Monday, nothing open. Yeah. So it was a bit of a strange one. It's probably the most sober game I've ever been to. I don't mean me, I mean the crowd in general. I can't remember whether we got can't remember whether we won 1-0 or drew 1-0, but I think we won 1-0, a late winner. But I said the game was memorable. It was the day rather than the actual match.
The actual match.
Because there weren't that many United fans there either. It was only a small ground, the old Bristol Rovers one, with the speedway track around the outside. But there was probably only 3,000 or 4,000 United fans there, which was incredibly low in that season when you consider we had 20,000, 30,000 at some away games. Yeah. That was a memorable one to be at. For different reasons, really. Any
younger fans who might watch this show in the end, obviously it's a pre-recorded show. It's going to go up in a couple of weeks. We're actually recording this as we speak. It's 3 days after United have beaten Brighton down at the Amex Stadium. We beat them 3-2 with a goal from a penalty that was really given after the final whistle had gone. Imagine that in our younger days, Gary. You would never have dreamt it, would you? But that's just by way of explanation. But going back to that second division season, to explain, as I said, for any younger viewers, you used to be able to just go to these stadiums and queue up and pay at the gate. So thousands and thousands of people used to go, didn't they? And often, there might even be 1,000 or more people not even get into the match, and they'd just go in the local pubs or whatever they might do. You'd go down there with the hope of getting in, and sometimes you might not get into the stadium. One game in particular that I went to was Cardiff City away. Did you go to that one, Gary?
I did, yeah.
Any stories from this one?
Well, yeah, arrived in Cardiff probably around about noon, and got off a train. And as the train pulled out, all of a sudden there was loads of Cardiff fans on the platform, and there was about 50 of us, and we got chased up the tracks the way we just come back in on the train. That it was just madness going on everywhere, and we were a bit unfortunate to be in the wrong place or get off the wrong train.
There was fighting going on in little pockets all around the town that day, wasn't there? There was it was unbelievable in those days. The football hooliganism, if you like, the crowds, crowds of fans waiting for the other fans and attacking them and things like that.
Yeah, I always remember all the Cardiff fans having what we used to call white skinners, like big baggy white jeans, and the butcher's coats were always popular in them days as well. But,
lots of United fans used to get a white butcher's coat and then obviously put badges on it, and you may be right, didn't they, about United and stuff like that. Yeah, they were. It was unusual fashion, but it was a fashion, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite funny. In all the times I've been to Germany watching United over the last 30 odd years, they seem to have a similar trend over there, especially in Bavaria, Munich. You always see Munich fans with their denim jackets with badges sewn all over them, and it always takes me back to them days.
So obviously that was the second division seasons. Tommy Dock was in charge. We got to a couple of cup finals under Tommy Dock. Any memories of those cup finals?
Obviously, I went to both of them. Excuse me. The Southampton game. Obviously, the first time we'd have been at Wembley since '68, and we lost quite a few semi-finals before then, which was in both competitions, which was made it even more such a happy event. And I don't think any of us foresaw what was going to be the outcome that day. So it really was a devastating day. And well, on a personal note, again, in the wrong place at the wrong time after the game in Soho, in the middle of London, we ended up with a bit of a fracas somewhere and ended up getting my jaw broke. So I was in hospital for 2 weeks after the game, in what was Westminster Hospital. So, I told a lie earlier. As a result of that, we played City at home. I think it was on the Thursday night after that cup final, the last league game, which was unusual to play any league game after a cup final. So I missed the City game. We beat them 2-0, and I was still in hospital for that one. But so I missed 3 games that season. Sorry.
That fracas in the centre of London, was it to do with football, or was it just something that happened?
It was like a lot of games in London. Whenever United were in town, you used to get all fans of London teams out at Euston, and they used to team up, and there'd be Tottenham, Millwall, West Ham, all of them would be out to have a go at us, and that's what happened that night. Really, there was about 30 of us in a boozer called the Green Man on Berwick Street, and we came out of there to move on, and then we just got ambushed outside, and I don't remember what happened to me because I was unconscious for a couple of days, but people I was with said they had sort of house bricks in football socks and were swinging them around, sort of thing. So I was only about 12 stone wet through in them days, so it took me off my feet, one of them. So I was lucky to get away with a broken jaw, really.
Unbelievable.
Didn't feel lucky at the time, though.
Yeah, but it didn't, yeah.
Well, the following year made up for it.
Yeah, beating Liverpool in the cup final. Obviously, Liverpool, this is 77, I think I'm right in saying. They were on for the treble, weren't they? Which obviously we've done many years later. But they won the European Cup as it was then. They won the league, and United stopped them doing the treble, beating them at Wembley, didn't they? Did you have a good day that day?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, it was. It's hard to find words, really. The relief of winning it, especially against them, and beating Leeds in the semi was a great day as well. It was the highlight of my watching United up until that point, really. Especially stopping them winning the treble, as you rightly said. But one thing I always remember from that game, which a lot of people now wouldn't believe it, But when the Liverpool players did their lap of honour, well, having lost sort of thing, you know what I mean? Most every
I know
losing
what you're
team
going
did.
to say. I know exactly.
And they came in front of the United end, and almost to a man, every United fan applauded them, and they were even shouting Liverpool.
Liverpool.
And I thought, this is weird. Like it was just mad because, yeah, obviously you get the supporters you get at an FA Cup final. I think are a little bit different than your regular match goers because a lot of them are there because they can be there, rather than they're a regular fan and that. So I don't know whether that was part of it, but
I'm glad you brought that up, Gary, because I actually remember I was at the game myself, and I remember that myself, and it was astonishing, wasn't it? It was really loud and reverberating around the stadium. The United end chanting Liverpool, Liverpool.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like yourself. I was a really young man then, or not much more than a child, really. But although we've just said it stopped them from winning the treble, they still had the European Cup final to play, which was about 4 days later. And
it was in Rome, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I couldn't help but feel as though the United fans were wishing them good luck for the following United. That's how it felt to me. Good luck on Wednesday in the European Cup final. Imagine that today.
Not at all, no. I think in them days, whenever another English team played in a European final, there was a bit more collective support from other clubs. I think in general, because they were English teams. Yeah. But I know I definitely didn't want Liverpool to win that European Cup or anything they won. Yeah. So it really shook me up a bit witnessing that at Wembley, because I didn't know how I felt. Part of me thought, well, great sportsmanship, but I thought, do we really want them to win the European Cup on Wednesday? So I wasn't one of the ones shouting Liverpool anyway. So
you touched on the FA Cup semi-final, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. The FA Cup semi-final we played more regularly, I think, at Villa Park. Obviously, younger fans might think it's always been at Wembley, the FA Cup semi-final, but it's not the case. They used to be at neutral venues, and we played plenty of cup semi-finals at Villa Park, and we also played a few at Hillsborough. I think that we played at Hillsborough, didn't we, against Derby County and against Leeds.
Yeah, the two consecutive years.
Consecutive seasons. No doubt you were at those games.
Yeah, both great days. The Derby one was an interesting one because the crowd control was terrible, as every game was at Hillsborough in them days. But in the Kop end, which was shared, there was a big crush at the front. I think it was just before the game started, and I sound a bit injury prone here, but I got a cracked rib against one of the barriers, and managed to. I was all right, but I managed to get on the pitch as it injured and walk round the side. And in them days at Hillsborough, they used to have the half-time scores with the big letters along the boardings in front of their main stand. And if you watch the video, you'll see me sat in front of H all through the game. Right. Imagine that nowadays. Right. So I just managed to find myself a nice little seat right by the side of the pitch.
You get all footage on the TV, yeah?
Yeah, every time I see...
Was that the Leeds game or the Derby game, did you say?
That was the Derby game, that was.
The county game. I'll get a footage of that, mate, and have a look for you. So if we move on into the 80s, at the time, late 70s and right through the 80s, Liverpool were dominating, weren't they? Winning the league regularly, won the European Cup a few times, and we had to settle for the odd FA Cup win, really, didn't we? We had another couple of cup wins in the 80s, 83 and 85, against Brighton and against Everton, weren't they? So, any good memories from those games?
Yeah, the Brighton game, the first game on the Saturday was it was a bit it was strange after the atmosphere we experienced against Southampton and Liverpool. Brighton, it was very flat somehow, and which from then on I realised was quite normal for FA Cup finals for the reasons I've just said about you get a lot of people there. It might be the only game they go to all season because they know somebody who's got who can get tickets from the FA or something like that. But it was a cracking game, the 2-2 draw, and we were lucky to get through that because there was the famous Gordon Smith miss and Bailey save and the famous commentator's words, and Smith must score, and he didn't. So but the replay was a fantastic night where it must have been 75-80% of the ground was United, and there seemed to be people there all day in London. It was similar to when Scotland used to play at Wembley in the 60s and 70s. There were just thousands of United fans everywhere having a good time, and there was no way we were ever going to not win that one, which obviously ended up 4-0 and a great cup win, which, as you said, with Liverpool dominating everything else, we really needed something like that to keep us going. So a couple of cup wins and beating Liverpool quite regularly in the 80s was our success, really, wasn't it? It
was brilliant. We managed to get a win over Liverpool so often when, let's be honest, it was such a superior team to us, but we regularly did beat them, which was at least something. Just touching again on that cup final to explain to anyone who doesn't know. Obviously, they drew 2-2 on the Saturday. And there was a replay in those days. There's no replays now, is there? Even in finals. So the replay was the following Thursday, wasn't it? So we played the FA Cup final twice in the space of 5 days, and moving into late 80s and the 90s. Obviously, the main man, Sir Alex, or Alex Ferguson, as he was at the time, he took over. How did you feel about it when he first got the job?
I was quite happy with it because his track record at Aberdeen was a bit in the Clough mould. He was taking what would seem to be average or decent players and building a great team out of decent players. He sort of seemed to beg, borrow and steal players from here, there and everywhere and get the best out of them. And but for 4 years or so, there weren't many highlights in terms of watching the type of football we were used to at United, or the football we'd become used to under Busby and Doherty. So it was a bit hit and miss in my view. We had some good players there though, and you got Davenport and players like that, and it was different, but. I mean, that season in '90, the rumours were that the press were full of it, that when we played at Forest in the FA Cup third round, if we didn't win that, he was out of a job. And we don't know whether that's true or not. But Mark Robbins popped up with Eder, and we kept on winning tricky games all through that cup run, and which ended up in another FA Cup final and another success. So. Yeah. Whether that did save his job, we'll never know, will we? But it was a memorable season.
Yeah, there's a lot of rumours that he was going to get the sack. It was about 3 years into his job, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We beat Forest in a cup. I think it might have been was it the quarter final or the last 16? But in this day and age, winning an FA Cup wouldn't save your job, would it? In those days, it was massive winning the FA Cup, and they went on to win it again. It was in a replay, wasn't it, against Crystal Palace?
Yeah.
Martin scored that great goal.
Yeah, it was. That was another eventful. The Saturday game was quite a thriller, really, wasn't it? The 3-3 with Ian Wright making his mark on the game in that day, and you usually getting a couple for us. But I always remember being very disappointed. I've always liked Steve Coppell as a man, a footballer, manager. The Palace team he sent out in the replay was certainly there to take no prisoners, and as I remember it, they kicked us off the park for most of the game. And luckily, Lee Martin
popped up.
Did a bit of magic down the left, and the rest was history. But it was, despite the getting kicked off the park, it was good to see Steve Coppell getting a good ovation from the United end at the end of the game. And another great cup victory that was.
Yeah, so Fergie Fergie won his first trophy with the FA Cup, which in those days got you into the now defunct European Cup Winners' Cup. I'm sure most people will know, but for those that don't know, the Champions League was preceded by the European Cup. The Europa League these days was the UEFA Cup. But in those days, if you won the FA Cup, you went into the European Cup Winners' Cup. And obviously they won that the following season. Any good memories from that particular season?
It was a good season because coming off the back of the FA Cup win the previous year, it was a little bit more exciting, and you could see things starting to come together a little bit. And the European run, I'm not sure any of us expected us to go that far, but once we got to a semi-final against Montpellier, a lot of people were thinking, who were these sort of things? So I think everybody knew the fact most people had never heard of them. We got a fair chance sort of thing, and it was a hard-fought two-legged semi-final, but we made it through. And to be honest, I don't think anybody gave us a hope in hell of beating Barcelona in the final in Rotterdam. But against
you were in Rotterdam, Gary?
Yes, mate. Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
For a few days, or just in and out.
We actually got into Rotterdam on the morning of the game, and went with my mate Marshall from Congleton, and we got a train from Ostend to Rotterdam, and it was a funny day because it was chucking it down, so it wasn't like your normal May Cup final sunshine sitting around in outside in squares having a beer.
Yeah.
And we went into sort of locals bars, coffee shops, and had a good time with the locals as much as anything really. And I do remember we bumped into Paddy Crerand along the way somewhere, right. And he was with somebody else, and we ended up spending a couple of hours with him. We had a nice drink with Paddy and whoever he's with, I can't remember now, but because it wasn't that normal to bump into players and ex-players in them days, and it certainly wasn't normal for ex-players to go to games as a fan, which Paddy's done all his life really, and other ex-players since. That was that. Yeah, it rounded off a nice day, but the match was unbelievable, really. I'm sure you remember yourself. We were played off the park, but a bit of determination, some great skill from a couple of players. I think we could have easily lost that game about 5-2 or something like that. But good goalkeeping, great defending. I always remember I watched the game again recently, a few months ago, and Koeman was actually running the game and firing shots in from everywhere. They're getting cleared off the line, and you thought, this just can't go on, sort of thing. And luckily it did. So that really winning the European trophy, it probably eclipsed the Liverpool Cup final in '77 in some ways, because it's special for any fan to see a team win a European final, and especially on foreign soil. So obviously that was the first time United had achieved that. So it was great to be there. Yeah, it was brilliant. And you knew that the team were going places then, because you don't fluke 2 cup runs against all odds like that. The FA Cup the previous season, and then we also got to the League Cup final. So I think we knew that this is a team that's got to start pushing for the league now, and which is the rest is history, sort of thing.
Yeah. Despite winning those 2 cups, and despite knowing that we had a team that was taking shape, you couldn't really have envisaged the enormity of the success that Fergie was going to have in the upcoming years, could you?
Oh, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen all along, mate. No, you're absolutely right. You just couldn't. But like a lot of other people, I mean, when we lost the league, I refuse to say Leeds won the league because I do think we handed it them. Yeah. So I'll never give Leeds credit for that. We lost it; they didn't win it. Yeah. You knew that as soon as we won one, I think the floodgates had opened because it brings about a self-belief and it was a confident team. So I didn't doubt that if we won one, we'd easily win 3 or 4, you know. But going on 13, I think in the end was obviously a bit more than anybody expected.
So obviously in the mid-90s we did a couple of doubles, didn't we? Which was, you know, beyond our wildest dreams when we were young men, wasn't it? It was literally unbelievable to win a double. But then came 1999, and who could ever have thought that was going to happen? What happened in '99? What's your favourite memories from that year, Gary?
Strangely, the league was just ticking along as normal, really, as we'd become accustomed to before Christmas. We'd lost a few, but we were up there, and then the FA Cup started in January, and I think we played Middlesbrough at home in the first game, and we were behind and ended up coming from behind to win quite late, if I remember right. And it sort of set a pattern for the rest of the season where we were down, but definitely not out, sort of thing. And then the infamous game against Liverpool, which, although one of the best games ever, for me, a personal reason, it was one of the worst ever, because when we equalised, I thought, oh, thank God for that, we got a draw off to Anfield on Wednesday. And I left. And the only reason I left was to go and get back to Piccadilly to get a train back to Euston, but to be able to buy a few beers to take on the train. Yeah. So I missed the winner going in. And I swore then I'm never going to do that again. So I actually missed the winner.
The train back. You were living in London those days.
I was, yeah. I moved to London in '91. So, I've been in London 8 years by then. Right. But so I was a regular on the 9:10 from Euston on a Saturday morning, and usually the 5:30 from Piccadilly back after. They were great days, by the way. There were some fantastic people from my time of being in London, people I didn't previously know, who became and still are good friends. Barney at Red News, and God bless her, Teresa, his mum. They were great people and good company. Great Reds. They were good. They were good days. It was the whole day was a good crack sort of thing. It wasn't just about going watching football. It was
the earlier trains from London on match days, certainly on Saturdays, they were packed with United fans, weren't they?
They were rammed, and there was a couple of people who organised train tickets. Mick Dobbin, God bless him, sadly no longer with us, but he was phenomenal. You know, if you, it's funny when I first met him, he said, if you need a ticket, don't ring me. I don't do phone calls. Write to me. And bought yourself a ticket, which was a bit odd, but it was great. And there were a few people like Mick who used to do some organising to make sure people got there, and tickets were hard to come by, and so if it was the same as it is now, if people have got spare tickets, they pass them on to other people who can go, and everybody got in usually in the end. So brilliant. Yeah, they were great days. But
you travelled quite a bit by train, Gary. Any good stories from travelling around Europe by train?
Yeah, loads, because all through the European games in the 90s and the 2000s, I always travelled by, 90% of the time travelled by train, and one of the longer ones was to Kosice, which is in the east of Slovakia, near the Ukraine border, and we left on the Saturday. There was about a dozen of us. Whoever we played on the Saturday, it might have been West Ham, but we left on the Saturday, and went on the train via Budapest and it might have been Prague as well, or oh no, Bratislava. So we made a few nights of it, and it was good. It was a great laugh, and we got into Kosice the morning of the game, and it was memorable in one way because we booked. Teresa McDonald had booked us into a hotel that was the main hotel in the city. It's Kosice, although it's only a small town, it's actually the second city in Slovakia. And it was also, we found out when we got there, it was the same hotel that the players and officials would be staying at.
Right.
So when we got there, we were told the booking wasn't possible because Manchester United are using the hotel, so they sort of bombed us out. Which was pretty shocking, really. And we ended up staying in a spa resort about 10 kilometres out of town, up in the mountains. Yeah. That was a fantastic place, and it cost us about 50p a night to stay there. But anyway, 4 days on the train. We went to the game, and we won 3-0, I think. And it was a cold night, and I remember at the night of the game, I was sat on the terraces in the United end. I was freezing, and I thought, do I really want another 4 days on the train going back? And so the thought was planted in my mind, and then I looked across, and I saw a fellow who was quite well known in them days from London called David Dreyer, who used to organise his own trips to football matches abroad, and he was there because he got a trip himself. So I jokingly said, "All right, David, you haven't got any spare seats on that flight, have you?" And he said, "Yeah, give us 30 quid and you're on, mate." So 30 quid was in his bin straight away, and I left the game and jumped in a cab, went back to the hotel, got my bag, straight to the airport, and instead of having 4 days on the train, I was back home in bed by 4 o'clock in the morning. So that was I felt a bit of a lightweight by bailing out on the rest of them, but they still had a good time getting home.
So instead of 4 days on the train, it was about 4 hours on a flight instead of take it.
Yeah, that was a right result. That was.
But when you were doing those train journeys, I take it you'd pick well, not necessarily a little town, but you'd pick somewhere. Would you sort of get the train, say on a Saturday, and stop somewhere, and we're going to pick this town, and you'd all get off, you'd have a drink and get an hotel, I take it, and then move on the next day to another town, and just gradually make your way over.
Yeah, literally. I remember going to Turin in might have been '96 with mate Graham, and we were on the train a couple of days before the game. Might have been on the Monday, and we stopped in Lyon, and there was something going on there. We could see it was really busy. We thought, well, I'll have a night in Lyon, and we couldn't get a hotel anywhere because there was the taxi driver said, "Oh, it's the La Fête, as in fete," and they have something called the Fête de Luminaire, Festival of Light, and it's always in round about the 10th of December for 3 days. So the whole city is sold out. You can't find anywhere, and we'd never heard of this festival. Me and Graham, we had a night. We managed to find a hostel in the end, and a fantastic night. And as a result of that, I've been back for this festival about 4 times since. Sometimes on the way to other United games in other places. So it's funny, just by getting off a train on a whim. Strange things happen to you. You see things you never thought you'd see. And on another trip, we ended up staying in a place called Verbier, which is quite an upmarket ski resort. And I think this was in October or November, and we just got a train to a place called Chambéry, which is in the foothills of the French Alps, and they had a cable car, and I thought, wonder where that goes. So we got on it and ended up in Verbier, and it's out of season for skiers, so the place was deserted, so we couldn't find anywhere to stay. We ended up staying with a Swiss family in an alpine ski lodge, just the two of us, and spent the night, ate with them and everything. We had a fantastic time.
How did you contact this Swiss family? How did you manage to do that?
Well, we got off the cable car, which went once an hour during the off season, and it was the only building that had any lights on. So we went and knocked on the door. We could see it was like a chalet type guest house sort of thing. And this woman who turns out to be Swiss, we said, "Oh, have you got a room?" And she went, "No, it was closed for the season." I said, "Oh, we got nowhere to stay." And she went, "Let me speak to my husband." And
right.
Yeah, they said, "Come in." And so we were the only two guests in the whole of Verbier. All the bars were closed. It's a bit of a daft thing to do, really. But
amazing. Right, well, we're coming up pretty close to the end of the show, Gary. So let's just jump well ahead from it. Let's just touch on the Champions League of '99. Let's just touch on that.
I think I remember that one.
Obviously, we've got to cover that. Obviously, the final or the semi-final. Any great memories?
Well, for me, the semi-final was, for me, the greatest game I've ever seen in my life. The second leg in Turin, and that it makes my hairs on my neck stand up thinking about it still now, because 2-0 down, well, 1-1 draw first leg, 2-0 down after 11 minutes, and the incredible thing is, it was a week after we were at Villa Park for the replay against Arsenal, where we were down to 10 men, and ended up pulling that one out. And I'd already decided I wasn't going to go to. I've been away that often on trips watching United that season. I thought, I can't. We'd only just come back from Milan from the quarter final, and I thought, I can't possibly do that one, especially on the train where you need a week off, really, week off work. And then the result of that Arsenal game, I said to two lads I was with, "There's no way I'm not going to Turin after that." So anyway, that's why I went. It was purely on the back of the win the previous week. And we got to Turin, and there was no hotels to be had. And after 11 minutes, me and a lot of others were actually trying to get out of the ground to go back into town for a beer. And the police wouldn't let us.
Wouldn't let you out.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
So we had to endure the rest of the game, which
and the rest of
it turned it round. Yeah. I always remember that performance. A lot of people give Roy Keane a lot of credit that night. But for me, Dwight York was the man who won us that game. I thought it was fantastic. He was one of the best players I've ever seen play for United. It really is. I'm so disappointed when we let him go that early. What a fantastic player. And for me, he was the catalyst for me that won us that treble that season. His performances overall were out of this world. But then after the game in Turin, we eventually got back into town, and no hotel, so we managed to find a few bars to drink in, and ended up drinking on the main Turin railway station at 5 o'clock in the morning, and having beers with their commuters, because it's quite common in Italy for people on the way to work to have a swift livener, quick off. So it was a memorable trip for many reasons, and I always remember the train we got back to France. We had to swap trains at a border town in the foothills of the Alps. I can't remember what it's called now, but it is a border town. And we had to get off the train and then catch another one. And there was about a dozen of us, and the bar was open on this platform. And we just sat there with a beer. It was freezing, and we were sat there with a beer, looking up at the Alps. And Mont Blanc, it was glorious, and knowing you're in the European Cup final in a few weeks' time. Now, that was one of the best moments ever. That beer was one of the best. It was just so sweet, and being with good lads who've been going quite a few games, and we shared that moment, and all the way back, fantastic day. And then obviously the final, which it's very difficult to put into words, the way I've just described the semi-final. But again, the performance on the pitch, with Scholes and Keane missing, we were playing one of the best teams in Europe, obviously, and they were by far the better team on the day. We could have got murdered that day, but like against Barcelona in '91, we just pulled it out when we needed to, and another team with great resolve, great character, who just didn't know how to lose, and. Another memorable night, or memorable few days. I ended up staying in Barcelona a couple of days longer than I planned with a few mates from Manchester who I bumped into when I was on my way back to the station, and ended up staying with them a couple of days longer. So I was getting back to the UK, having won the treble. It was like a proper cock of the north feeling, sort of. You know, you thought, where'd you go from that? And the answer is, you can't go anywhere from that. So everything after it is, sorry, I've just knocked my iPad over there. Everything that comes after it, is, you just can't compare it really. Yeah. And if you started winning the treble every season, like winning the league, you forget about how you won them, where you won them, because they all mesh into one in the end. So that treble is something that'll probably never be done by any other team, hopefully. And it's, you know, it's hard to see anybody doing it really. So being a part of that is special. It's really was at every stage of it.
Yeah. So we've basically come full circle now, because we've won the treble, we've won all the league so often. Fergie did what he set out to do, and he knocked Liverpool off the perch. We've now come round full circle, and Liverpool are taking over again for the foreseeable future. And obviously, the man who scored that winning goal that night, probably the most famous goal in United's history, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the treble year. He scored the winner in the new camp. United, obviously, in this day and age, he's United's manager. How do you feel he's doing, Gary, at the minute?
I was glad when he was appointed, because I think I knew we had to break this cycle of having the Galactico big ego managers, because it just doesn't work. They're only managing the first team rather than the club, and you know they're going to be very short term in their thinking, because they know they're only going to be there 2 or 3 years at the tops, which is exactly as it was with Van Gaal and Mourinho. So I was very relieved when they gave Ole the job, although it was going into the unknown. He hadn't got a good track record at Cardiff, and although he'd done a bit at Mulder and taken them to new places, which different league, I don't know much about the Norwegian league. So I had completely open mind and was glad we had one of our own back at the helm, or one of our own as we see him. Since he started, I like the fact that he's managing the whole club from the academy all the way upwards, in the same way that Ferguson and Busby did. Because in my opinion, if you're making great players, you'll always have a great team and a good backbone to the team. A lot of the teams now that have relied so much on the checkbook, they tend to have no backbone. I mean, not criticising City for any particular reason, but so many times in the last 10 years since they've had a lot of money pumped in, they with an odd exception of Company, they seem to have no backbone players when things are going wrong for them. People who stand up and be counted, and that's something United have always had, with mainly homegrown players and some players we've brought in. So I think we get the balance right, and the changing room has the right blend of homegrown and brought in talent. So I like Solskjaer, that's his attitude, and with me heart, I'm 100% behind him. With me head, what's happened so far, I have got reservations, but then I think I'd still, unless there was somebody I was 100% sure could do the same, have the same attitude that he's got towards the whole club, but be a better coach, I would rather have Solskjaer. And the only person that really comes to mind, or has come to mind in the last year or so, has been Pochettino, who I've always rated a great coach, good man manager, and the fact he got Tottenham to a Champions League final last year speaks volumes, and in my book we should have won it as well. But so it's a head against the heart one. I think my head's telling me we probably would be doing better now with Pochettino, but I'm happy to give Ole another couple of years at least to get it right. Yeah, And he has got a hard time, as has any manager at United, because the way the club is run, it's a business, and we have to accept that. Ever since Martin Edwards was ousted and the club was sold off, we've had to accept it's a company, not a football club anymore. So you have to accept it. That's the way it is. And as a manager working against that backdrop, where especially with the club being leveraged for the purpose as it has, the club are going to be paying millions and millions in interest fees for the loans that they've made to buy the club. So you're fighting a losing battle straight away when it comes to finances. And I think we've seen recently with the Sancho transfer saga, where you have to question whether United have really tried to sign him, or whether it's just smoke and mirrors to give the impression that we want to sign him. And we'll probably never know unless we do sign him.
Well, there's still time, isn't there? Yeah, there is still time.
Yeah. So I feel sorry for Ole and the situation he's in, but my heart really wants him to succeed, being a United fan, obviously. But for him personally, I'd love him to overcome everything and come out of it the other side in the same way Fergie did.
So would I.
Yeah.
Gary, it's been absolutely fantastic, mate. Probably try and have you on again at some stage, but it's the first issue of Red Through and Through. So thank you, Gary George. It's been a pleasure having you on, mate.
Thank you, mate. It's been an honour to be invited. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, mate.